Hi, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have a full review of the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Let's get started. This is the most expensive smartwatch that Apple has and definitely the most advanced they can offer. Although, honestly, if you compare its main functions and features against the Apple Watch Series 9, I definitely think it would not be as convenient to purchase this model. However, it does offer the most advanced materials and a very different design, so you immediately notice that you have the Apple Watch Ultra, and this could be a very important purchase factor for most Apple users. Its launch price in Mexico is 17,999 pesos. On screen, you see the reference price in dollars, although remember that the prices here are not the same as over there. And I must also tell you that this is the base edition, but you can modify the band and other added things. So it can go up considerably in price if you choose more premium materials for the bands. So next, let's see what Apple can offer us with its most expensive smartwatch of the moment. Like all Apple Watches, the proposal is square with rounded corners. And in this case, we are going to find more buttons in addition to the digital crown. So on this side, we find a button where we open the quick settings. And if we press twice, we can access our Apple Wallet. And on the left side, we are going to find a button with a fully customizable orange hue. In my case, I selected to turn on the flashlight when I press it, but obviously you could also customize it for other things. Notice how through the settings we can select what action we want this button to perform. And by the way, when we press and hold this button, the siren will activate, which will be a super loud sound with which you could be found if you are lost in a remote area, or at least it could make it easier to find you. Remember that this is a watch that Apple has focused a lot on explorers and adventurers, so this is an interesting option. And believe me, the siren is indeed capable of emitting a very loud sound, and it's a sound that has been specifically thought out so that it can create a lot of resonances. And with that, you can be heard over long distances. Let's see if you can hear it through the microphone. It's definitely a considerably loud sound. And finally, with regard to the buttons, the digital crown also serves as a button, so you can press it once to go back to the home screen or to open the apps, and twice to open the list of recent apps. Remember that this digital crown rotates, so you're going to be able to interact in many areas of the system with it. And in addition, the watch has an exaggeratedly good apex motor, which produces certain shocks. It doesn't feel like a vibration, it feels like bumps when you're interacting with the system or with the alarms and other things. So it's really very nice, that experience. I haven't seen it on any other watch. Its thickness is 14.4 millimeters, and as materials we will find the titanium case with aerospace grade. And in the case of the bands, we will find seamless fabric with titanium lugs. Although I insist that in the case of the bands, you could buy it with bands of different materials. But in this case, this is one of the most basic, and yet the experience is really very good. It comes with Velcro, so it sticks perfectly well, and I really must say that the quality feels extremely high. Also, it is very easy to take these bands on and off. And an important point to consider is that being an Apple Watch, obviously we will have endless accessories and bands, even unofficial ones, to be able to purchase. So the customization of your watch is going to be extremely good. The area that comes in contact with your skin is actually quite comfortable. In fact, it is made of ceramic, so it offers a very comfortable and pleasant feel. And at the front, we'll find sapphire, so it's a considerably strong and resistant glass to avoid any damage to the screen. In addition, the fact that it has a titanium metal frame also gives it a lot more resistance compared to its smaller siblings that have a curved glass screen. And regarding other resistance things, you should know that Apple guarantees that you can go diving with this watch. So water resistance is more than guaranteed. They offer a 40-meter deep dive. Also notice how it has a special water mode that if you enable, it's going to cause the screen to stop responding. So if it's in contact with water, it's not going to have unwanted actions. And the moment you want to disable the water mode, just hold down the digital crown for a little bit of time. And it will also emit sound through the speaker to try to expel all the water that has accumulated. And finally, it also has the military endurance test with the MIL STD 800 DZH standard, so we could even consider it as an all-terrain watch. Although it is obviously still a technology accessory that could become fragile in certain environments, but its performance is absolutely fine. The display is also of excellent quality. We are talking about an OLED panel with LTPO technology, so it is capable of reaching 1 Hz in its refresh rate alone. And with this, you're guaranteed that even though the screen is always on showing it to you now, it really won't have a very high power consumption. This screen has a resolution of 410 by 502 pixels, which Apple calls Retina. So things look extremely detailed, even the smallest letters. And the brightness considers also that it's exaggeratedly good. It goes up to 3000 nits outdoors. It's the most spectacular display we've ever seen. And it's also capable of going down to 1 nit. So in the evenings it can become a comfortable display as well. And it actually adapts the faceplate to have a red look. And it doesn't get to hurt you in very low light conditions. In addition, all the covers have their always on display mode. So even if you switch to another cover, the screen can stay on displaying more information. We will talk a little more about the covers later. But for now, you should know that it also has the flip to turn on the screen and activate more content. And in fact, the transition is very nice because you can see how it dims little by little. And it's not too abrupt or immediate a change. So there is not a doubt the screen is exaggeratedly spectacular wherever you look at it. Let's talk now about the sound because it integrates speaker. And it also integrates several microphones around it for excellent voice pickup. But what you should know is that this speaker will not serve to play music, since the music will only be played with headphones connected via Bluetooth. Notice how it integrates Apple Music and even other applications. But when trying to play, it will tell you to select a Bluetooth device to be able to perform this action. Unlike other watches, mainly from Huawei and Samsung, which do allow you to play directly on the watch using its speaker. The same will happen with other streaming apps like Spotify or YouTube Music. In general, the watch does not seem to have capabilities to play using its speaker. So music apps in general tend to function as if they were a remote control of sorts. Although in the case of Spotify, we can download content to store it locally. But we will necessarily need headphones to listen to the music. And in the case of microphones, they will also be useful for making calls. In fact, the speakerphone also works for that, and we can perfectly answer the call and manipulate the volume using the digital crown.
Hola, saludos.
The speaker is powerful enough to hear the call from your wrist, although it doesn't go any further, and I don't see any need for it to be louder. Obviously, the microphones will be of excellent quality because they are also capable of recognizing your voice commands, even without the need to say the name of the assistant. If you have it enabled in the settings, you just turn your wrist and start telling it something you want it to do the action. How much is 38 times 42? Notice how in this case I asked it a question and it immediately answered me. Obviously, you need to make the marked gesture for it to understand that you are talking to it. How much is 42 times 32? And there it is. It actually works pretty well. And Siri's response is very quick. It feels like a very snappy voice assistant, completely faster compared to the response that Bixby might give us on Samsung watches. In fact, we could also talk to Siri by holding down the digital crown. Enable silent mode on my iPhone. There it is. As you can see, in this case, it enabled do not disturb mode. And you can ask her basically whatever you want by holding down the digital crown as well. I find the voice assistant to be excellent as a function on the watch, although we all know Siri could still improve compared against Alexa or Google Assistant, but that will surely be announced soon as some special improvement, specifically for this assistant. Now let's talk about all the health monitoring it is capable of. And for that, we're going to enter this section of the rings, so you can see how it has a count of your steps, an approximate distance of your run, and even the floors you've climbed. Again, with the crown, we can scroll to find out all the information it's collecting in the app. From this point on, you realize how excellent Apple's app design is, and the smooth transitions. Plus the very smooth navigation we have throughout the system. In this ring chart, you can take a quick look at your current status, how many calories you've burned, the exercise you've done, and even how many times you've been on your feet. All this during the day. But obviously that's not the only thing it's capable of monitoring. It also includes this application so you can have your heart rate monitoring, although I find it very curious that it takes a few seconds to give you the current status, compared to other watches even much cheaper. That can give you this figure at all times. Either way, if you are doing the monitoring in the background, so you can give you a look at it on the graph, obviously also through your iPhone, and it's even able to alert you when your heart rate is too high, or when it's too low. So it's very specialized monitoring. It will also be able to go around monitoring your sleep. Specifically, it can show you a graph of the times that you were awake. It can give you a pretty detailed report as well, so you can see how long you were awake and how long you were in the different stages of sleep. Obviously, through the iPhone, it can give you a history as well. But also through the Apple Watch, you can see more or less how your sleep has been behaving. On average, how long you've been sleeping. And also here, you can set your bedtime and your wake-up time. The oxygen saturation feature is controversial, because Apple is having problems with a patent in the United States. However, outside the United States, it works exactly the same, to give you quickly and easily from the watch what your saturation percentage is in order to have a reference. Although remember that it is not considered as a medical device. Also, this option specifically will not be constantly monitoring it, so in this case it cannot show you a graph and more information. And this seems very strange to me, especially since the watch is very expensive, and I have seen much cheaper watches that are capable of monitoring 24/7 this parameter, although obviously with some inaccuracy in case the watch detects a lot of movement. Through the iPhone app, you can get to see some of the history you've had with respect to blood oxygen, so it's strange that on the iPhone you can't get a glimpse of it this way. It can even automatically track what your respiration rate is. So it's a really very advanced monitoring device. But one curious thing I noticed is that it doesn't have any apps to monitor stress, unlike other watches like Fitbit that have pretty advanced monitoring in that regard. Instead, there is simply a mindfulness app, where you can manually record your mood and have breathing exercises. Another curious thing is that from the watch, you can't see your body temperature or wrist temperature. But from the app, it does integrate this wrist temperature section, so you can see more or less how it has been changing over time. And obviously, one of its most advanced features is its ability to perform electrocardiograms. So you just place your finger on the digital crown and this action starts to take place. I'm gonna be quiet. In this case, the measurement gave a completely good result, although it is advisable to be in a more comfortable position to perform this monitoring. But it is definitely a good thing to have these capabilities to perform even an electrocardiogram directly with your watch. Although anyway, they always make the clarification that this is not a medical device, and don't make medication decisions based on these results. And again, from the iPhone, you can review more advanced results. For example, this electrocardiogram. You could even export it as a PDF to share with a doctor. And it can give you a fully detailed report of all the measurements that you're taking, as well as your heart rate, even heart variability, and some other things. So it is considerably advanced in its monitoring. But there are things that other watches can do that this one cannot. For example, there's a Huawei watch that can take blood pressure with an airbag. And Samsung's watch is able to give a measurement of body composition to see how much water, how much fat, and how much muscle mass you have. In this case, being such an expensive device, we would like to see those advanced monitoring options as well. Regarding sports and exercise monitoring, obviously this watch has very good support for a lot of exercises and special sports. It is a specialist in this. It also integrates dual band GPS so you can have accurate monitoring of your routes when you go running or walking, and it has personalized monitoring for various exercises, and when you're in the middle of a workout you can see how you have access to the music control directly. And we can also take a look at all the count that is making us of different parameters. It can also tell us in which zone we are to know if we are already burning calories or not yet. And finally, it shows us a summary still of an overview of our activity of the day. And another thing I like is that we can exit this exercise mode, and it continues the monitoring while we can do some other quick thing on our watch, like answer a message or something like that. And I highlight this because there are other watches that are not able to do this activity. Obviously, we can also go back to our exercise activity, and to exit, just press this button without any problem. In addition, the training application has a large number of settings so that you can customize your experience. Of course, it is able to start monitoring automatically without you telling it when you started doing any sport. So for sports training, I think it's currently the most advanced watch because it offers so many options. Even if you're going to use it for diving, it has the ability to measure the depth you're at. And it also has a water temperature sensor. Obviously, it will also have specialized applications for these types of activities. And it also has compass, atmospheric pressure sensor, altitude sensor, For women, it also has its cycle manager, which can be perfectly synchronized with the health application on the iPhone, in order to more or less predict the behavior of the cycle. And something that I really like about the watch is that it has a medication app that again can sync with the iPhone. So you can add these medications and it automatically sets reminders for you. And with this, you avoid forgetting any specific medication. Personally, I don't take any medication on a recurring basis, but I think it would be very useful in case it was necessary. And finally, also, this watch is able to monitor noise. So it could give you an alert in case you are constantly in very noisy environments, so you can take care of your ears. Or also, out of curiosity, it could become very useful for you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the battery that this watch has. Because generally, Apple Watches usually have simple batteries, compared especially against watches from other brands. This is no exception, but within the Apple Watches is the one with the longest battery life. And honestly, I find it a very comfortable experience. It's not a watch that you have to charge every day, although in my case I usually put it to charge every day because I was already used to it. But the watch never usually goes below 70% or 75% battery. Apple's official figure is 36 hours with normal use, and even up to 72 hours with power saving mode, although obviously you're going to disable various sensors. But it really seems like an extremely good battery experience to me, unless you're used to watches that you generally have to charge every 2 weeks. In that sense, if you're going to feel a complete setback. But remember that the battery life is not that spectacular on Apple Watches, because of all the capabilities it has that I've already told you about and have yet to tell you about. Charging is not too fast. However, I insist that if you charge it every day simply by taking a bath, you can perfectly keep it with an excellent battery. I did a test and in 15 minutes it recovered 15% of energy. After half an hour it was going 28%. So it's slowly getting slower to charge. And it was completely finished in 1 hour and 50 minutes. So it's not an ultra spectacular charge with respect to speed. But I insist with 15 minutes every day you are going to maintain an excellent experience. It's time to talk about the system of this watch. And to start, let's talk about the dials, which obviously will be interchangeable. You can even generate different styles of dials. In a moment, I show you the iPhone application through which you can manage each of these elements. The cover pages have complications, which are these little additional indicators that you can select what information you want them to show you. In fact, the dials can be customized at a pretty deep level. You can change the style of the watch that is being displayed. You can change the style of the border as well. Also, if you want the automatic night mode to be enabled or always on. If you want everything to be the same color or multicolored. And obviously, as I told you, the access to the complications, where we have a huge variety of information, since each application can also create their own complications, even from outside developers and not just Apple apps. So we are going to find a huge variety. In this case, for example, YouTube Music has its own complication and some other apps will also do the same. So the cover art can really contain a lot of information, so you can perfectly visualize each of these parameters. And as I say, you can also generate new covers directly from the watch, although it will be more comfortable to do it from the iPhone. Apple offers in a general way some styles of covers. And then you can customize them at a much deeper level. From the iPhone Watch application, it will be where you can access to customize each of these covers, and even has the section cover gallery where you can explore new content, and all sincerely with an excellent graphic style by Apple designers. So each one of these covers is excellent, and they are totally free. But if you want to acquire new covers totally different from the covers that Apple usually designs, you can install applications like Phaser. And from these applications you will be able to install even a little stranger or more alternative covers, so we have an excellent variety of cover art. And in this aspect it looks like one of its strongest points. Although I wish they could take advantage of horizontal scrolling from the main screen, because there isn't any kind of information you can preview. If you scroll from bottom to top, if you're going to be able to access a small list of quick info widgets, and you can edit this widget screen by holding down on it, so you can add new quick info widgets. In this aspect, I think we also find a very good variety of widgets, available also for developers of other applications. So I think it's very comfortable, this widget experience at the bottom. But I do wish it had other capabilities by scrolling sideways. If we slide from top to bottom, we access the notifications. And obviously the interaction with notifications will be super advanced, because we can not only see several notifications grouped together, but we can also respond to them, and not only with predefined messages, but we can also dictate the message completely with our voice. And the dictation is super accurate and fast. Or also manually write, or we can also select emojis here. So the experience of the notification seems to me totally supreme. We're going to dictate this response. Thank you very much. And that's how simple and fast it was. Unlike other watches where you can also dictate, but the process is much slower. And obviously it's not only able to show you text and emojis, but in the case of WhatsApp it could also show you stickers, which comes in handy when chatting. Although curiously this watch does not have the WhatsApp application, unlike watches with Wear OS, as for example Samsung watches. That is quite curious, because this watch is one of those with the largest number of applications, since it has access to the App Store. But curiously WhatsApp does not appear available. However, many applications that you can install and take advantage of appear. It will give you some suggestions and recommendations. Many of them will be focused on exercise, but many others also to productivity and other actions. So we have a huge variety of applications. Personally, I don't usually use so many apps on the watch. But if you are a user who does, the truth is that this watch has the largest variety of apps available. Navigation on the watch is quite similar to what we see on iPhone. That is, we don't have a gesture to go backwards. If you are on the first screen of the application, to go backwards, you'll have to press the digital crown button. But notice how sometimes it goes all the way back to the home screen. But at other times, it goes back to the list of recent apps. So the behavior, I would say, is a bit unstable. I could conclude in that if you recently opened the app and you press the button, it's going to do the back gesture. But if you've been using the app for a while now and you press the button, it's actually going to work like a home button. Really very confusing behavior. And in fact, in the notifications, you'll also notice that the moment you press it, it's going to do the back action and not the home action. So personally, I found the navigation system on the watch a bit confusing. In fact, the notifications, you can dismiss them as well. Sliding down and it's going to be marked as red. So from my point of view, the navigation could be improved to be a little more intuitive. But in the rest of features, it is a super complete watch. For example, it also has access to Apple Maps, so that it will give you the directions. Obviously, you can also install Google Maps, and the watch will give you the directions to know if it's time to turn left or right to reach your destination, either walking or even from the car. I remind you that you can also pay directly with your cards using Apple Pay and Apple Wallet. Simply add your cards, and by bringing the watch close to the bank terminal, you can execute that payment. It also has a camera shutter feature, which works pretty simply. Notice how it not only works as a remote shutter, but also as a remote viewfinder. I mean, I can perfectly well focus to another side. And from the watch, I will be able to see what I'm taking. What I find very curious is that from the watch, I can't change modes. Like to switch from photo to video or something like that. If I want to switch modes, I have to do it from the iPhone. And it's automatically going to change the mode on the watch. So I would find the synchronization perfect, but I would also find it much more functional. That from the watch, I have the capabilities to change modes. With the digital crown, I can change the zoom. And that's pretty cool too. It's very handy. And it has some additional functions to switch between the front camera and the rear camera. And also to manage the flash behavior. This is also a very useful feature on Apple Watches. And I like that it even supports portrait mode. Obviously, panorama mode will not be available. But portrait mode, photo mode, video mode, even cinema mode as well. Also slow motion and fast motion. So basically, you can use all the iPhone camera modes right from the watch. And with respect to more basic functions, obviously we'll have timers, which you can activate manually or through voice with Siri. You can also create direct shortcuts on the home screen for timers. We have here the stopwatch function with multiple counters. World clock. You can also set alarms. And notice that the alarm is quite convenient because I insist that it simply emits a tap on the wrist. although it is also capable of emitting sound for this alarm. But personally, I usually wake up easily with this kind of vibration, so I can wake up without disturbing whoever. We also have access to the gallery, although it does not remotely access the entire iPhone gallery, but simply to the photos that you have selected as featured. It also has the function of audiobooks, obviously synced with your iPhone library. This is something I haven't seen on other watches, at least not with native apps. And it also has Apple Home, which from my point of view would be much more useful if it was compatible with more devices. But in my case, I have few devices compatible with this ecosystem, so it really has been of little use to me, unlike Samsung watches, where we find SmartThings, which has a much more extensive compatibility with other brands. So here I have not used that option. But if I had already the ecosystem perfectly optimized with Apple, I could perfectly turn on the lights, or the air conditioning and other things with the watch. You can also record voice memos. And this is a very convenient thing to do. If you have a quick idea, you can perfectly record it from your wrist. And it also includes a walkie-talkie function, which can be used in conjunction with another Apple Watch to send quick audio messages to your friends or family. Finally, the Shortcut app is also available, which is launched from the iPhone. So from here, you could also launch some shortcuts that you have created from your iPhone. And as a fun fact, the calculator, in addition to having the traditional operations, see how it could become useful. That if you went with your friends to eat, and they are going to pay 550 pesos, you can press this button to divide the tip. In this case, you can set the percentage of tip they want to give. And you can also define how many people were in this group, so that it quickly shows you how much each person should contribute. So it's a curious operation. That can definitely come in handy. And finally, of course, you can also press this button to ring your iPhone when you can't find it. It actually has ultra-wideband, so it's going to tell you how far away the iPhone is, obviously if it's in a close radius, and also which direction it's facing. So that's very convenient. I'm going to zoom the iPhone out a little bit so you can see. We're going to again beep the iPhone, and notice how it's telling me that it's at a distance of approximately 2 meters. In this case, it turns green as I get closer. And it even gives off that vibration in the form of a thump as well. The closer you get, the faster it gets. Although I find it very curious that in addition to having this option to ring the cell phone, you also have the option to find devices, both accessories and Apple products. But in this case, note how it will be able to load the location on a map, and we can also emit sound from here to make it sound remotely, even if it's not necessarily near us. And I'm even forgetting to tell you that you can also have an eSIM on this watch, so that without the need to have your cell phone nearby, you can make calls, or you can even forward calls from your cell phone to the watch. So it has very good connectivity capabilities as well. And with that, we're coming to the end of this video. I hope you liked it and it's all clear to you. If you liked it, you know you can tell us about it, and we'll see you next time.